Hello, everybody. Welcome to JFL Network. I'm head analyst Phil Holes, joined by Leroy Jenkins and Sammy Holden, former JFL quarterback. Today, we're going over the season two draft class and counting out hits and misses for each pick.
I'm very excited to be here today, Phil, after my season inexplicably came to a very swift end. I still have feelings for that one, but I'm very excited to talk about this draft class and really excited to hear all the thoughts today.
Yeah, I'm
What do you
here.
think?
I'm excited to talk. We're all happy. We're ready to go. Let's get into it.
All
All right, let's kick
right.
it off in the first round. So, first overall, the Lancers traded their entire draft class to move up to first overall with the Rhinos to select wide receiver Garrett Breida, who won the Heisman. I
I
think
will
this is a pretty easy one.
I mean, it's hard to say that he wasn't the best pick in the entire draft last season or 2 seasons ago now. Sorry, we're at the tail end of season 4, but this really was just an absolute stunner of a pick. He's been great.
It was a good move to move up to get him.
Lancers' biggest need in season one was wide receiver. They had the best player at pretty much every position other than that, and the best position groups. All they needed was a true wide receiver one. Undrafted free agent Denzel Mason actually led the team in receiving season one. So getting that true wide receiver one was like huge for the team, and it ultimately won them a Super Bowl. This is for sure a hit.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Now let's keep
For
going
second
down.
overall,
Keanu Mallory for the Salamanders, another great pick. The Salamanders really turned their season around from season 1 to season 2. One of the worst teams season 1, but they went back to the middle of the pack and even in season 3 won the Junior Bowl, and Keanu Mallory was a huge part of that run.
I mean, you got to look at the Salamanders this way. They really, record wise, they were atrocious, like worst team in the league. But when you look at it, they were really close. So they were only missing a few things, and he helped fill one of the bigger defensive gaps on the team.
Absolutely.
the Salamanders with first overall pick Jack Malley the season before, the first ever draft pick in JFL history. They knew with how their season one was a failure, they needed to do something to turn it around and not waste his career. And new manager hire Brady Carlson made that true with his first draft pick as a manager, taking the top D line prospect Keanu Mallory, which really kicked off that rebuild, which happened really quickly. Two-time All Pro, definitely a hit.
Second overall, and he worked out.
Third overall was where it gets interesting. We got quarterback Sammy Akers, who was by far and away the best quarterback prospect in that class. But this is hard to tell if we call this a hit or a miss.
With the Glaciers and their lineup, I've been poring over the stats recently. I don't think it was a miss by any means. It was certainly an improvement on their season. They did end up scoring so many more points from season 1 to season 2 while underneath this new leader of theirs. So I'm going to say it was a hit for the Glaciers.
I don't
Leroy?
think that it's a bust at all because it's not. He's not a miss. He's not a bust. But is he a top tier, absolute game changer pick? No, it's just a solid, understandable pick. Nothing game changing, but solid.
It was hard for the Glaciers to not take the top quarterback prospect here, especially when it fell to them at the third overall, considering they had Hans Bach Aachen for season one. So it's not really impressive to have an increase in scoring from one of the worst starting quarterbacks we've ever seen to a first projected quarterback pick. But he has not met the expectations that come with that. But I also think he hasn't had the receiving core or the offense around him to really facilitate that. I think Sammy Akers is a good quarterback and a franchise quarterback for years to come. I think it's a good pick. I think it's a hit, but it definitely is like a tougher one to decide.
I'm gonna have to agree with that information. He didn't lead the league in anything spectacular last year, but he still put up respectable numbers in the middle of the pack as a rookie and was by far and away much better than at least a few of the other QBs in this class. And he's definitely held a better record, or at least better stats since then than some of the others.
Fourth, move into the fourth overall pick, running back Antonio Muma to the Leopards.
I
What do we
think
think?
I think this is the first one where we don't see a game-changing pick for a team. While the Leopards have been doing well, I don't think Antonio Muma is entirely the reason for it.
Gotta combat that a little bit because I mean, you look at his rookie year, and he had 10 touchdowns. He was a
That's
great
true.
point scorer for the Leopards. And in his sophomore season, season three, he scored 8.
He was
I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely getting in the end zone. He just didn't have a whole ton of yards, especially in comparison to the rest of the league. He really
he
I
was
did,
think
but
he
just
I
had the
that.
mean, what
least,
I think he was really just that goal line option.
he had the least amount of rushing yards by starters, I believe, and was also like top five in touchdowns, which is bizarre. But see, his sophomore season, didn't he put up 700 yards? I want to say
Let me see.
his sophomore season, he put up 742 yards.
He did.
that's pretty
Now,
good. Yeah,
he was
that's a good stat line.
yeah, he did find his stride, I guess, in his sophomore season. I will say I was not privy to all the information in season 2 and 3. I was still very much recovering from an injury. Though I am now trying to do my best to catch back up.
Yes. But it is to note though, here in season four, he had one really great game at the start of the season, and then has not rushed for much more than like 20 yards in a game. He's been so bad that he's cost the Leopards games, and he's already off the team.
Yeah, that recent news really is where my most recent bias with my opinion has fallen is due to the Leopards' recent decisions with this player. Though I can definitely see in his freshman and sophomore year, he definitely wasn't by any means costing them games.
That's true. If Antonio Muma was still playing the way he was season two, or even his second season, or even his rookie season, putting up the 10 touchdowns, I think the Leopards are a top three seed in the heading into the playoffs right now. But instead, they are barely fighting for the last playoff spot and not even in hold of their division.
I do
So
agree.
him being off the team already, I'm going to label him as a miss, being the fourth overall pick.
I do think he's a miss from that spot, at least with recent information.
Especially with Alan Galvin still on the board.
Yes, very much
That
so.
way, absolutely correct.
Now, moving on to pick number 5, the Kingfishers selected Ronnie Wiley, the second QB taken in this class. What do we think?
It's the second straight season of the Kingfishers taking a quarterback in the first round after Ike Michaels didn't pan out, in which he went to the Glaciers where he competed with Sammy Akers for that job. But I believe Ronnie Wiley was a major upgrade for them. He's played, well, not lights out ever. I believe he does show a lot of potential to be a franchise quarterback. He just needs real weapons. I like Sammy, or I like Ronnie Wiley a lot.
I understand that you like him, but the way I look at him is his rookie season he threw a lot of interceptions, and it has toned down a little bit, but he definitely needs a little more stuff around him in order to be a true like franchise guy to truly understand it and have the fans worked up around him and have that support of the team. But he's a leader. He's doing pretty good on his team given the circumstances. I'm not mad at that pick.
I agree. I think it was definitely an upgrade from where they started. And once again, yeah, while not maybe lights out or absolutely top of the food chain here, I think he has been an improvement, especially with the completion percentage and really just getting the ball downfield. I think as soon as the Kingfishers really build a team around this guy, they could really become pretty dangerous. Next, arguably
Oh
where
boy.
I might have some very strong opinions, we have Olive Russi to the Salamanders after trading with the Corsairs. Now, this is a pick of the draft, in my opinion.
I
This
couldn't agree
this
more.
this dude was insane. Coming out as a rookie, he set the tackle record for the JFL at 130. He had 3 sacks and one
Monumental.
forced fumble. He was a monster for the Salamanders. He helped lead the defense. He was amazing. He's a tone setter. I mean, he's been great. Not to mention his follow up season when he was the once again debatably the best linebacker in the league. just having insane stats.
He was Defensive Rookie of the Year. He two-time All-Pro, monumental statistics with the 130 tackles as a rookie. Major part of that Salamanders turn their Jupiter Bowl run. I think it's easy. It's a hit. It's a hit.
I think, in my opinion, this is. I'm even gonna label this as my steal of the draft, or at least of the first round. This is a steal. The way that he fell halfway through the round and even had defensive players drafted ahead of him, I think Oliver Russi is absolutely the first round steal.
I mean, you gotta look at it this way: the only defensive player selected above him was Keanu Mallory, which is funny enough.
Also,
The Salamanders pick. You can tell where that new manager's mindset was coming in the league. He
Absolutely.
was like, "I want that defense," and it worked out pretty well. I mean, the Salamanders ended up winning Jupiter Bowl three.
Absolutely. It took him a second to get back around. Season two didn't go exactly as hoped, but they went 500 in season two, and then came to be one of the most dominant teams we've seen in the league to date. So, I do think that the Salamanders' new manager, they had quite the plan on their head.
Pick
Number
9. We
nine.
have quarterback Joe Syke, which was if Thomas Francis isn't the biggest reach of the draft, this one certainly is. Joe Syke could have been taken way later. He was projected late second, high third. But the Rhinos decided they wanted this guy, and they took him at 9, which with their trade from the Lancers. Joe Syke has been their guy. He took them to a playoffs where they were destroyed. And they've been a decent team with him, but I think he's the reason they're not getting over the hump.
I do agree. While Joe Syke has been a leader on the current Rhinos team, I just cannot say with good confidence that this is anything better than a bust of the first round. He has just not played to his caliber of where he was taken, and it is understandable. The Rhinos wanted to fix their one of their biggest issues. I think they just went and addressed the wrong issue first.
That's a good way of
Yeah,
saying it. I mean, it's a lot of pressure to be taken at that spot for kind of caliber that he was. He's definitely he's a good veteran presence for the Rhinos, and the Rhinos have had an interesting relationship with Joe Syke, as the manager has referred to him as Joe Suck multiple times. However, I mean, he's been solid. He hasn't been awful, but I do agree that he may be the reason holding them back.
he's definitely a solid quarterback in a lot of ways, but he's too inconsistent to really be a playoff quarterback. I think he's best off as a bridge quarterback for teams who are transitioning in transitioning periods. The league is too young for really use for a bridge quarterback. I think the Rhinos need to get someone better. I'm going to label Joe Syke as a miss.
Agreed.
And on that note, I think he would be a top tier backup for the league.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But as a number one trying to take a team all the way to glory, he's not your guy.
Said it better. Next up, we have got the final pick of the first round, Jamel Jelks. Now, the Paladins had quite the season one. Season two, they had a little bit of a regression after they coming off of their Jupiter Bowl win. However, they didn't have a super slide. Now, what do you guys think about this pick here?
They did regress. I think the biggest reason for that is this pick right here with Jamel Jukes. It was a major reach, and I think the worst pick of Nikki Singer's tenure as the Paladins manager. Um, the worst pick of the first round. Jukes barely did anything, and he's already off the team. He's actually a Rhino now on the practice squad. Just a complete miss. I believe the second worst receiver in this class to JJ Gaziano. But when there were other offensive weapons throughout this draft available. There's no justification for taking a guy like this in the first round who they were hoping to be a gadget weapon, but ended up being nothing for the offense. It's a clear miss.
I'm gonna have to agree. He was also still the bottom of their receiving core even late into the season and into season three. Jamel Jelks just did not get any work done for the Paladins lineup.
this guy is a third round talent for this draft. I mean, his rookie season, he had 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, which, whatever, it's his rookie season. May not have that good relationship built up yet. However, in his second season, he had 154 yards, 0 touchdowns, and a fumble.
On all 8
He-
games.
He's not he has not been good. Very clearly a miss.
So, recap round 1. Who do we think the steal of the round was and the bust of the round? I mean, I think steal is easily Olive Russie.
It's hard to
Yep, I
disagree
agree
with that.
too.
You
Oliver
you,
Russi
you
is
almost
the
can't
steal.
disagree with it.
Well, Garrett Breda could be argued as the best player of the draft. He was taken first overall. Nobody passed on him. The Salamanders got Russi at 6, meaning 5 teams passed on him. So that makes him a bigger steal to me.
Now, for the really hard one in this round, the bust. I have got an eye on 2 players in here who I would label as the bust of the round. And unfortunately, it is looking at the bottom 2 of the round.
What do you think, Leroy?
You know, I'm a big football guy, not a big offensive guy. Love the defense, love defensive picks, love defensive teams, love the hammering. But these last 2 picks in the first round they both could have been taken in the third round, and they still probably wouldn't have been the greatest picks then. I'm going to put it that way. They're both not very good. I think Jamel Jelks is worse than Joe Syke because Joe Syke is still he'd be a great transition guy, a good backup, whereas Jamel Jelks, why is he even in the league still?
Well, he may be on his way out depending on how the Rhinos use him next, but I couldn't agree more. I do think Jamel Jelks is going to take the bust of this round. What do you think, Phil?
I think it's Jamel Jelks. Considering like player for player, the Joe Syke did take the Rhinos to a playoffs, and he does have them in a winning record currently in season 4. He's had good games. He's had a lot of highlights. He's given them hope in a lot of cases. And in that position, the Rhinos needed a quarterback, and they needed Joe Syke. They weren't going to get the top 2 guys, so they had to get him eventually. It's a justifiable pick. For the Paladins, there's no justification for taking Jelks here in the first round, and he's been a significantly worse player. I think he's clearly the worst bust of the round.
All right. And that wraps up round 1. On to round 2. First pick in this round to the Rhinos back after they got their original pick spot back. They took running back Alan Galvin. Now, this was a turnaround for the Rhinos from their Joe Syke pick. This was absolutely a hit, in my opinion.
Major hit. 2-time All-Pro Allen Galvin, who has been one of the absolute elite running backs of the league since he entered All-Pro as a rookie. Just a phenomenal player.
He even led the league in his freshman year ahead of Ernie Gecko, the veteran. That
Wasn't it
tells you
by 1
something.
yard?
By 1 yard, 863 against 862. While he did have a few more carries and a lower yards per carry, he got that extra yard, putting him at the top in that depth.
I mean, you can't argue with his success he could have been taken first round in the top 5. It's an amazing pick here. Outstanding. He's the in my opinion, one of the best offensive players in the league. But in terms of the Rhinos, he's the heart and soul of the offense. He's their main guy.
For sure.
You
He is
don't have the Rhinos.
the identity.
You don't have the Rhinos without Alan Galvin.
For sure.
Next, Mitch Shelvin to the Corsairs with pick number 12 after their trade with the Salamanders.
Now, I know from talking with Jerry, my nephew, who was the quarterback for the Corsairs at the time, and their manager, John Eaton, they loved Mitch Shelvin. Mitch Shelvin was their draft crush going in. All they wanted in the whole draft was Mitch Shelvin, and they would be happy. And there was a lot of actual drama going on during that draft, leading up to it, endearing of a lot of teams that wanted to take Mick Shelvin and were threatening to take him in the first round. But he ended up sliding to the Corsairs, and they snagged him, and he made All Pro in his second season. I think that's a clear hit, and I know my nephew loves playing with him and says he's an excellent tight end.
I think Mitch was absolutely a hit for the Corsairs. They really needed that tight end spot, and they went out and got him with their second pick, where he probably deserved to go. I don't think he should have been first round, but I think this was an excellent pick at the time. And he's now still with the Corsairs and still putting in quite a bit of work, even against the current no-fly zone that we've seen dominate the league. In the Corsairs game against them, Mitch was the only player that would get any work done. So I'm very confident saying this was a hit for the team.
And I think this was a very interesting pick in my opinion because of all that drama going on. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the way the Corsairs got that draft pick from the Salamanders is when the Salamanders traded for their first round pick, they gave away their tight end Henry Rodriguez, who was a great tight end. And then the Corsairs later used him to gain more draft capital later on. So they took a tight end, turned it into more picks later to draft Mitch Shelvin because they loved him so much.
That's very correct.
And I mean, it's hard to, you can't tell him that he's bad. He's a great reliable target. He's a good tight end. He's a hit.
Staying on the topic of tight ends, next from the Glaciers, they took Vance Hodges with the 13th pick overall in the second round.
This guy was projected the first tight end in the class, which Mitch Shelvin got taken one pick earlier because of the Corsairs draft crush. But Vance Hodges has been the better tight end. He's about to make his second All Pro in a row, which will beat out Mitch Shelvin. He's a great receiving option in a lot of ways, and definitely Sammy Akers' favorite target over there.
Absolutely. He has led the Glaciers in receiving yards, and that's hard to say for the tight ends usually. But Sammy Akers and Vance just coming out of the same draft class, back-to-back picks from the Glaciers, they just got that connection.
It's a hit.
Yeah.
He's a hit. He's been a top tight end in the league since he's been in it. As much as yeah, it's just I'll leave it at that. He's a hit.
Agreed. Next, from the Leopards at 14, Bryson Bynes, D lineman.
Now this one is a miss to me. Bryson Bynes was really hyped up coming out of college, but he's really done nothing since being in the league. I was really high on this pick when the Leopards took him. I thought it was what they needed. They needed D line, and I really liked Bryson Bynes' fit schematically into the Leopards defense, but it really just hasn't panned out. He has not transitioned to being a pro well at all. He's like their fourth D lineman now, and I think it's a miss.
I gotta
Yeah,
agree. They addressed their issue, but unfortunately, they just didn't get the right player from the draft.
attacked their weak point, and he just didn't meet the expectation. It's a miss. He's granted that the Leopards do have a top tier defensive line room now. It's gotten a lot better since this pick. It kind of set them back because they could have had a lot more production out of him and kind of created an issue for him where now they're just kind of have him there in that fourth slot and he's just participating. It's a miss.
Yeah. Next, linebacker class, CJ Procease, Kingfishers. Or Procise, I apologize.
CJ Procise was the number 2 linebacker in this draft class behind Olive Russi and fell all the way to halfway through the second round, but he's been a defensive catalyst for the struggling Kingfishers team. I believe he was their best defensive player last season in season 3, and I think that's a hit. He's just a solid role piece for them.
I agree with that completely. He's a solid. He's been a great leader for their defense. He's been a presence. He's been felt. He's great for them. Now, is he absolute top tier talent in the league? No, but he's a hit and he's a staple of the Kingfishers.
I agree. And next, Scotty Dorn, to the Corsairs at 16.
Now,
Now,
I could not believe that Scotty Dorn fell this far, being the top defensive back prospect in the draft. He was a massive ball hawk in college. He had an unbelievable amount of interceptions and big plays. He was shut down. I have no idea how he fell this far, and I think it was an absolute steal for the Corsairs. While he has not been incredible in the pros yet, I believe he's on his way to his first All Pro, and I think that's easily a hit late in the second round for the top defensive back prospect.
gotta agree. He was an immediate impact player with the Corsairs, second in tackles and led the team or matched the other team player in interceptions in his freshman year. I think Scotty Dorn was an absolute steal in this round for the Corsairs.
I mean, you can't be upset with him at all. He had 5 interceptions his rookie year, and yeah, he may have not be at his expectation coming out of the draft, but he's been great for the Corsairs. He's been a staple of their defensive back room. The way the Salamanders drafted, if they had their original second round pick on top of the their first round pick that they acquired from the Corsairs, they probably would have gotten the top 3 defenders, one from each of the categories. But he's an absolute
Nice.
steal
Good
at
trio there.
16.
That would have
He's
been quite
amazing.
that would have
No,
been a
I think
terrifying freshman class on the Salamanders.
yeah, I think the funny thing about Scotty Dorn is Jack Malley, his MVP season, he threw 2 interceptions, including the playoffs. Both of those interceptions were Scotty Dorn.
Yes, they were.
Scotty Dorn picking off the season 3 MVP.
Generational season for Jack Malley. He threw 30 touchdowns to 1 interception, and that 1 interception was Scotty Dorn.
What a season. Scotty Dorn has just got to be somewhere in a record book for that performance. Isaiah Kessler from the Sharks. Now, this one was interesting.
Isaiah Kessler, I think, is a pretty easy hit. He's a part of that 4-man Shark D line where they're all getting sacks all the time. He's not the biggest D line. He's not the biggest threat, but he's getting sacks consistently, and he's making an impact on this team, this good team. I think Isaiah Kessler is just a easy, solid hit.
I agree. It's hard to really stand out when your teammates are the entire just the absolute stud of a defensive line here. Though I do think I need to backtrack you there, Phil. Isaiah did lead the D lineman for the Sharks in his freshman year. 3
Well,
sacks,
there you
1
go.
forced fumble, and 54 tackles. He kept even with Whitaker Nicholas, who was also a top tier D lineman that year. So I do think that this was actually even more of a hit than we initially thought.
I mean, he's definitely a hit. I do think he benefits currently in season 4 from the D line that he's a part of, but I mean, he's still a role player, absolutely. And he's been great for the Sharks, part of their amazing D line that they've assembled. Sharks manager Avery McConnell, he has been a monster in the drafts. He's been drafting top talent, have had them marked if he doesn't draft them. Been a great manager when it comes to drafting. And this was a good pick from him.
I'm going to have to agree with that one. Next, one of another great hit. Drew Pinion from the Rhinos at pick 19.
Definitely a great pick. He made All Pro already. He's been the best receiving option for the Rhinos. Really, the only solid, trustworthy receiving option for Joe Syke. It's been the offense for the Rhinos is all this draft class, and the real center of it is just Alan Galvin and then Drew Pinion. Other than that, that's what the Rhinos got.
They
It's a major
re-
hit.
they really went for weapons in this draft, and gosh darn it, they got them in the second round. I think Drew has been an excellent piece in the Rhinos offense since his acquisition, and really only ever been overshown by Alan Galvin.
I agree with that. He's been a great. He has been the only option for the Rhinos. Their offense has really just been solely Alan Galvin, But when it comes to receiving and anything in the air for the Rhinos, it's been him. I mean, it's just, but he's been a good hit for the Rhinos, but I think he just needs someone a little bit better throwing him the football.
Agreed.
Yeah, you're thinking of a multi-time All-Pro there.
In the final pick of the second round, Darian Samaje from the Paladins, DB at pick 20. What do we think about this one?
So once again, I think this is the Paladins' worst draft class. Samaje was definitely a miss. I think he's been injured a lot of times. He's very injury prone. He's missed games in 2 seasons now since being drafted. He's not done much at all for that DB room that has pretty good players in it with Defensive Player of the Year Lamar Humphrey, Charles Millward, Riley Rice. He's definitely the weak link in that unit, and he really provides nothing on the field and definitely nothing when he's off it with injuries. So I'd call this another miss for the Paladins here.
Yeah, he just has not gotten the work done that he needs to get done in this room for the Paladins. And I don't want to say that uh, Darian was part of the Paladins' backslide from season one, but it definitely did not help to slow it.
That he's a fine depth DB, but he he did not he's not been super great. If he's your number three, number four, that's fine, whatever. But it's just kind of a wasted pick here by the Paladins.
The Take a recap of round two. Who do we think the steal of this round is, and who do we think the bust of this round is? I can see this going in so many different directions.
I think the
Hmm.
best players in this round that were taken are Alan Galvin, Drew Pinion, and Scotty Dorn. But one of them is the heart and soul of a team, and that would be Alan Galvin.
I've
I
got
think
to
Alan
agree.
Galvin being so much better than the rest of the class. He's a future Hall of Famer, I think, and I can't say that confidently about anyone else in this draft class. I mean, I don't care if he's the first pick of the round. Him not going in the first is a steal. So I say Alan Galvin.
I agree. And even
Agreed.
there was also a running back taken ahead of him, Antonio Muma, who is facing a lot of hardships. Had Alvin Galvin been taken there by the Leopards, who's to say what the Leopards become then? So I've got to say Allen's my steal of this round.
Agreed.
Last, the bust. I have just got to look at the other talent at this position, and I can't sit by and say it's not Bryson Bynes.
I think Bryson Bynes is the miss of the round for sure.
Yeah.
Just has not gotten done the work that he was expected of him, and taken in the middle of the round and seen all the other either great or middle depth D lineman players and seeing Bryson just at the bottom of his class chart over and over again. It's just not the pick. Into our final round, round three. This was a very light draft class, but managers still persisted with many of their picks. However, pick 21 by the Rhinos was certainly not JJ Gaziano. This, I will say right here up front, is the biggest bust of this entire draft class.
Yeah,
I,
I
I
mean, I wouldn't disagree with you there.
you can't disagree with it. I mean, whereas the Sharks have been great at drafting, the Rhinos have been almost the complete opposite. The Rhinos have had, I think, maybe
Yeah.
two or three good picks in all of their drafts. The Rhinos are just, for whatever reason, they cannot pull it together. They cannot hit on players.
To be
And
fair,
this was a big whiff.
to be fair, the Rhinos did have Drew Pinion and Alan Galvin in the second round.
Yeah,
Those
they
are
have a couple good
the
picks every
huge
season, but then the rest they usually tend to
the
miss.
huge highlights of the
Yes.
Rhinos in this season 2 draft class was those two players. However, JJ, to put into perspective, had 5 more yards and 1 more reception than Alan Galvin, the star running back, had in season 2.
JJ
That's
Gaziano probably is the worst player in this draft. I wouldn't say he's the biggest bust because Jamel Jelks was a first round pick, but definitely the worst player across the board in this draft. And to be taken in the first pick of the third round, I don't know why the Rhinos decided to go with a fifth offensive player. To go with five offensive players in this draft, I feel like they could have snagged someone for their defense here, but they decided to take JJ Gaziano. Like I said before, they could have gotten Joe Syke with this pick and then taken somebody else with that first rounder. It's really a wasted opportunity. Definitely a miss.
Next, Gus Concrete for the Salamanders. A very
This was
popular tight end on that team.
Now this was a very interesting pick. This was laughed at when it was made. Gus Concrete, I mean, his scouting report, he's a pure blocker, he's strong, but he has below average hands and a drop problem. So far in the league, we have not seen his below average hands or drop problems. He's been a super reliable tight end for the Salamanders. He's been a great fallback for Jack Malley. He's been one of the most consistent players in the league. He's not a superstar. He's not amazing, but he's not going to let you down. And it's hilarious that he worked out because everyone laughed at him.
I gotta agree with you, Leroy. I really like Gus Concrete, especially with the hindsight that we now have. He was very much involved in the passing game, and he is, while it's maybe not reflected on the stat sheet, I would bet my quarterback arm that he was responsible for a lot of the success around this team.
One more thing about him. This was Salamanders manager Brady Carlson's first offensive pick that he ever made. And the Salamanders have notoriously been a pass heavy offense, like near air raid offense, where all they do is throw. And Gus Concrete, I think he really opened the playbook up to the run game with his blocking abilities.
All right. Ezekiel Ramon to the Leopards, linebacker, 24.
This is an easy one. He made All Pro as a rookie, as a third round pick. Taking Ruiz Levi's job as a rookie, making All Pro, in which he hasn't really done a ton since, but he's just been a good, solid player with that All Pro nod. He's a good player for the Leopards. I think it's an easy hit in the third round.
Agreed. Let's try
I
and
think,
move right along.
yeah,
Kevin Gable to the Corsairs at 25.
Kevin Gable is one of my favorite picks this draft. He made All Pro as a rookie D lineman on this Corsairs defense, really being a big part of their turnaround. And excellent sack getter. He didn't do a whole lot in his second season until the playoffs, where he did have a great time. And here in season 4, he's looking like contending for All Pro again. This is an excellent D lineman in the league, and easy hit.
I agree. This might have been the Corsairs' best for value pick, frankly.
when you look at the league in its entirety, there's a lot of talent all around it, most of the positions. But D line is not one of those positions. You have those top guys, and then there's a big fall off. And Kevin Gable, he's proven himself. He's been near the top almost every year. He's been doing good. He's a great staple of the Corsairs. It's a great pick for round 3.
Next, Treaton Nad for the Griffins' final pick.
Trionad's a good player. He gets a lot of forced fumbles. He's a big member of that Griffins linebacker unit, which is really the only bright spot for that team past couple seasons. I would call this a hit for sure.
I agree. The Griffins have had a very solid defensive scheme throughout their history, and I think that Treaton really added to that.
Yeah, the Griffins' offense has just been holding them back because they can't compete against teams when they put up points. But defensively, the Griffins have been solid, and Treat on that has been one of the reasons for that. It's a hit.
It's definitely a hit, which leads us to a really interesting pick. So pick 28, third to last pick of the draft, another linebacker goes off the board. Linebacker Warren Bowman, who's a really risky pick. nicknamed Warhead in college for his absolute game-wrecking ability, but then he got severely injured early into his senior season before declaring for the draft. So it's a huge risk to see if he can even be the same player after suffering that injury. And he got off to a really slow start in his pro career, but as he continued to get further removed from that injury and further along, he started to play better and better. And then in season three, he was one of the best linebackers in the whole league, making All Pro and having 8 forced fumbles, I believe, which is like second
Correct.
most ever in a season. I think this is an easy hit. What a
I
steal to get in the this late in the draft, third to last pick.
I think because of the development we've seen out of the Warhead, he has absolutely been a steal in this draft class. He may not have been seen that way in his freshman season, but in his breakout year in season three, he was electric to watch.
You just look at it this way: you draft someone who's been injured. That's a gamble. And the Sharks, they were willing to roll the dice on him, and it turned out amazingly for the Sharks. He's been a staple of their defense. He's been great. There's just no other way of putting it. He's one of the best linebackers in the league.
Yeah, and to get a All Pro this late in the draft, that alone is huge. So easy hit
I have got to say, I think he has earned the right to reclaim that Warhead nickname.
for sure.
Finally, for the final pick of the draft, Corey Roach to the Paladins after once again a tango of trades back and forth with the Glaciers. What do we
So
think for the last pick?
Mr. Irrelevant of this draft. Um, Corey Roach, the linebacker. This pick alone, I think, redeems the draft class a little bit for the Paladins because while they missed on the first two, this linebacker, I think Corey Roach is one of the better linebackers. In like the fringe, not quite all pro, but like really close like tier of linebackers. And I think he has the potential to become all pro in one of these seasons. And he's the best, like one of the best linebackers for the Paladins in that really crowded room. They have like 5 good linebackers that they have to rotate through, and he's kind of the leader in that room.
He certainly got off to a slow start in season two, but in season three, he won like so many of these other guys. He had a breakout season and he led their team in tackles and forced fumbles and just went completely nuts.
He's been great for the Paladins. They didn't have a super great draft class before him. I agree with that. But he's been great. He's been a linebacker leader. He's been really solid. And I mean, you can't really ask for more than that. If you can't make All Pro, be one of the best that doesn't make it.
Agreed. Now,
For
for the
sure.
final overview of the draft in round three, bust and steal. I think bust is quite clearly going to go to JJ Gaziano in this class.
Easily, easily.
Yeah,
For what the Rhinos could have taken with pick 21 and also their desperation in offense, I just do not think this was at all a good pick.
no.
For the very hard part, though, the steal of this round,
Yes, there's a lot of
there's
good options for that. A lot of all pros in this third round. A lot of great players. For me, it's between 2 guys, and that's Kevin Gable and Warren Bowman, which it's a hard
It, it,
decision.
it is really hard to decide between them because they both have been really good, but have both also had one not so great year. They both filled huge roles in their respective teams. It's really a matter of preference here. Bowman, he's been great for the Sharks, but he was a gamble. So, I mean, for a steal, for him being taken lower than Kevin Gable, and for no one really knowing how he was going to turn out, I think he's the steal.
That's what I was gonna say. I agree with that completely. Him being taken lower than Kevin Gable, especially, and then having similar careers, and also I think Warren Bowman's best season is better than Kevin Gable's best season so far. So I'm definitely going to give the nod to Warren Bowman as the steal of this round, and therefore kind of the steal of the draft, almost being this late.
I'm gonna have to agree. And while I may have some distaste for the Sharks organization after a certain incident.
After
I have got to give the applause to their general manager and say that Warren Bowman is my steal of this round as well.
I mean, if Warren Bowman can come back from an injury, maybe.
I don't know. It's gonna take a lot of PT if I ever want to get back on the field again. But Cards are never out of play. Take us away.
All right. Well, that's our draft season 2 draft recap. Going over all the hits and misses. So I'm Phil Holes.
I'm Sammy Holden.
I'm Leroy Jenkins.
Thank you for joining us on JFL Network, and let me know if you need any holes filled.
Wow. Jesus.
That is that funny.
I don't want to laugh. Oh my god.
That was fun,
crazy.
guys. That was such a good time.
Yeah. Oh my god. Season 3 is gonna be a rough one.
Leroy Jenkins.
Oh yeah.
1 second. Sorry, my girl was yelling at me. Edit that out. Okay.